And we're back with our next guest, Dusty Baxley, and he is the Executive Director of the Bouldercrest Retreat in Bluemont, Virginia. And your retreat really does some amazing things for our wounded warriors.
Yes, it does.
Yes. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the history and the mission of what you all are doing out there?
It's an interesting history, and that Master Chief Petty Officer Ken Falk and his wife Julia they're the co-founders of Bouldercrest Retreat. And Ken served 21 and a half years as a EOD bomb tech. And after he got out of the military, he formed a company called AT Solutions, Anti-Terrorist Solutions. And he had the company for quite a number of years, about 10 years. And he went back to school, and he had bought a piece of property out called Bouldercrest Estate, in the first ridge of the Blue Ridge Mountains there outside of Bluemont. And there was a surge in the war where, over a period of 12 months, 71 bomb techs became amputees. So about every 4 days, there was an amputee arriving to Walter Reed.
Oh my.
And so he went out to the hospital, because that's his group, EOD guys, and he would visit them, and he found out that there wasn't enough money around to be able to have the families to be reunited with their veterans. And they're there for long-term care, anywhere from 1 to 6 years. And so he formed a foundation called the EOD Warrior Foundation, began raising money so the families could be together. And then he's the kind of guy that he'd see one of the caregivers that had been overworked, and he'd walk in, hand her $300 and say, "Go to the spa for the day, I'll sit with this guy." So then he and his wife began hosting a lot of these guys at his home. And then one day he came in, and his wife and some girls were sitting around having a wine, and she had drawn a little schematic, and she said, "You know that paddock that we have down at the bottom of the hill, about 37 acres, we raise hay there and give to horse rescue." She goes, "The guys come here, it's still our home, it's not their home. Why don't we put a couple of cabins on that property, and it can be their home away from home?" And there's where the idea grew to that. And so they began rezoning it and getting permits. It took about 18 months. It was going to take about 2.5 years. It took them 18 months to build the retreat. And they raised $10 million to build it and pay for it. They put $1 million of their own money behind it and donated the land, and thus Bouldercrest Retreat stood up. We've been up since September 2013. And it's about 2.5 years now. And we've put about 2,000 warriors and their families through the doors. So.
And this is the first of its kind in the country.
It's the first privately funded rural Veterans and Military Wellness Center in America.
And you have some fairly impressive people on your honorary board.
There's a few.
Yes.
There's a
few. You know, I think that Chuck Hagel is.
He's recently joined our board. He's a nice man.
Very, very. If you get a chance to go to their website, bouldercrest.org, and take a look at that, there are a lot of things you can actually donate to that. Now, I noticed that you do have events throughout the year.
There's about 56 events in the area because we are privately funded.
Right.
We have a beautiful community that supports us. It's pretty amazing the volunteer hours that we rack up out there, that people come out and help us to maintain the site. So I mean, there's 4 gorgeous cabins there, log cabins. We have a stocked fishing pond, have a $1 million walled garden. We have chickens, children's playground.
Horses.
Yeah, we have two
horses
retired race horses. We have a labyrinth, 7 archery lanes. It's quite extensive. Really, really beautiful place. So 6 months out of the year, we have what we call rest and reconnection stays for families. And they can book 2 to 6 nights and stay at the retreat for free. All they got to do is get there, bring some food to be able to operate out of the kitchen, and we have all of our different activities there available for them.
And this is just for the veterans, though?
For combat veterans and their families.
Right, this is not open to the public?
It is not.
Okay.
So at the last day of each month, our website opens up for 4 months in advance. So as an example, the end of May, we open up for September. And you can book whatever days that we're not running programs. And so we have a program there called PATH, Progressive and Alternative Therapies for Healing Heroes.
With 2 H's.
Yes, with 2 H's. And it's a combat stress reduction that's geared towards post-traumatic growth, because we believe that a lot of our guys get stuck, and it's not what's wrong with them, it's what's happened.
Right.
And so we have a 7-day very intense program, and it helps to unstick them, if you will, and helps them to struggle well, because that's what life is. Life is a struggle. So they go from stuck to struggle with strength. Because our firm belief is that we all were once great on the battlefield, and there was no reason for us not to be great in our communities again as we were downrange.
Agreed. Yes. Well, if you are a combat wounded warrior and you need the services of Bouldercrest, they can just simply go to the website to reach out to you all.
Sure.
And it's a beautiful website, beautiful facility there. And so, how did you get involved in this? I mean, did you know the founder, or how did you get
I had
involved?
my own journey.
Okay.
So I served from 72 to 94, and last deployment came back, and infidelity had crept into the marriage, too many deployments. And so I was not a happy camper.
Sure.
I went to Australia for 15 years, and not having my tribe around me of fellow combat veterans, I slowly but surely melted my own way.
Yeah.
Killed a second marriage and came home January 2009 to check into VA and find out that I wasn't doing very well. So I picked up some practices, took about a year and a half to put my head back on. And then I went up to Fort Bragg for an All-American reunion there with the 82nd. And I was unaware of the suicide rate. And so sitting around with the guys, and we started looking for people, and the suicides were amazing. Single vehicle accidents, prescription drug overdoses, death by police. And they talk about it 22 to 23 a day now. That's based off of a study that was done in 1999 for 5 years, and it didn't even include California or Texas, and it was only 21 states that reported. So the figure of 22 to 23 a day, which would be over 8,000 a year, is substantially higher.
I was going to say
Substantially
that's
higher.
yeah.
So I was doing pretty well, and the guys asked me, I looked healthy, and they're like, what are you doing for yourself? And I said, well, I practice transcendental meditation. I'm back in the gym. I'm eating well. I'm in a good relationship. And they're like, you should teach us. And so I got inspired, became a teacher. And then I went to work for the David Lynch Foundation, became their national director, put together Operation Warrior Wellness, which is a veterans TM instruction, and began traveling the country teaching in and out of clinics and retreats and programs. And I was a newlywed. So after 2 to 3 weeks out of every month for almost 5 years, my wife wanted me to kind of slow down a little bit. And I actually was with another program that Ken hosted, because when he started looking at doing programs himself, he started hosting the best of the best and the worst of the best so he could have a look at them. So he finally decided that he wanted to do something himself and try to be able to give America a healthcare innovative program that would be different, because prolonged exposure, cognitive talkback is not working.
Right.
And they've written about it and basically said the mental health care system is broken. So he's taken up the pledge to create a very innovative program, which we have, which we're currently writing curriculum for.
Oh.
And it's backed by Dr. Rich Tedeschi, who studied post-traumatic growth in a 30-year study. So we've turned this into a curriculum, and it's an 18-month program where we help guys get back on the path and begin to walk the path forward. So I was one of the people that was on the initial planning committee that actually put the program together. So I was teaching there since it opened. And last April, we were finishing up a program, and Ken tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I was tired of traveling. I said, yeah, I'm tired of traveling. He said, if I can drag you out of Florida, come up here and be my executive director. Nice. So we moved up here last June and began in July last year. And it's just been there's always a 5-meter target. We're very, very busy.
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, I think that this is much needed, and I'm sure that the families that you're helping are incredibly grateful.
Well, what we're hoping to do more than anything is if we can get this program into a curriculum, which we are, and then we can take it and scale it and train other programs to teach this, we can actually reach more. Our goal is to build 9 more of these around the country, like Bouldercrest Retreat, to be able to deliver these programs and these services in high-density veteran population areas. So that's our goal. It's a nice goal.
That's a nice goal.
So they take about $500 million each to put together. So it's about $500 million. So we reckon we got a big goal.
Yes, but you know what? It's a lofty venture, so nothing worth having is easy.
Think big, do big.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, thank you for coming and joining me today on
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And again, go to the website, bouldercrestretreat.org, and check out all the great things that they're doing. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back with another veteran. With a veteran. His name is Ian Boyden, and he served in the Army for 8 years. And Ian, you're a bit concerned about the confusion of Memorial Day.
I think that Memorial Day has morphed from its original intent, which was to honor those who did pay with their lives, and,
Yes.
and you know, it's the blood and treasure that our country has spent to enjoy the freedoms we have, to more of a social event where it's the beginning of summer, and that's a great way to, you know, kind of transition from sacrifice to fun, but it's very much forgotten along the way, and it's not. In doing so, a lot of times I think that we forget to pay our respects to those who did provide that sacrifice.
So you said you think there are 3 schools of thought.
Yes.
So can you explain to me what the 3 schools of thought are?
The general population and the majority of people today don't have that direct connection to somebody who did pass away or you know, provide the sacrifice, and it's much more of a social. It's barbecues, car sales,
Wearing white.
Wearing white. You know, it's now I'm making my summer plans. Then you have another group which was probably the family members, or more of a familiar connection to someone who did die in service, and the third group is the veterans who lost their best friends, and sometimes we're present for that. And they're very 3 distinctly emotionally impacting differences along the way, and how you view that. I mean, you can have the barbecue, or you can say, oh, I miss Uncle Joe, or my brother, my sister, whoever it happens to be, and then it's, I remember that day, and when this is my friend, this is the person I sat with, and they're not around anymore. And it's not, so these are people you say thank you to, but they can never say you're welcome back.
So that is another thing that people have a bit of confusion about. And they mean well when they're thanking a veteran.
Oh, absolutely.
But that is actually something that they should be doing on Veterans Day, because veterans that they're thanking are still around and are here. But Memorial Day should really be in memory of the people that have fought and died for our country.
More reflective. And, you know, growing up, this was the time when everybody went out and put the flags out in the cemeteries, and I don't even see that so much anymore. And it's a very different dynamic today. And good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. And if you can recognize that, hey, if you see somebody out this weekend and they're going out to a cemetery, you know, if you got a flag, hand it to them, because maybe they don't have one to put down. If they do, great. If you want to take your time, and there's the Boy Scouts and all kinds of the VFW and American Legion, all these groups do go out and lay it down. That's a great way to recognize what has been done before to help you enjoy the freedoms that you enjoy today.
I know my grandpa Johnson was in the Battle of the Bulge during World War II, and he was actually awarded the Liberty Jubilee Award from the country of France. And when Memorial Day came around, this was a huge event for him, because he came back, but a lot of his friends didn't.
Yeah.
And he was involved in their local VFW, and they set up a parade. And I almost think it's generational. Like, that generation really understood the sacrifice, whereas it hasn't necessarily always been handed down. Sadly,
it's very convenient that you actually say that right now, because this is the first time in history that we really have 5 generations out in society today. We have everything from the greatest generation, which is your, you know, and my great-grandfather's generation, but all the way to a generation we haven't entirely named yet, which is after the millennials. So you have the boomers, that is a mixed bag on, they kind of recognize it and they don't. And then you have the Gen Xers, the Gen Yers, the millennials. And when you look through it, it's ironic. It's almost skipped a generation every time, because we've been in a conflict about every 20 years is the average. And this latest one, we're still dealing with the ramifications of that, and a lot of the Gen Xers and Gen Yers that have been involved in that haven't really come back and integrated into society yet. So the recognition of all of those that aren't around anymore is still kind of coming. And there's a lot of social debate and discussion about where that's going to go or how that recognition is going to be given, because it's very different generationally and culturally than it used to be. But the real crux of that is every day we have 22 vets on average that are still dealing with their wounds and not going to make it till tomorrow, because the reality is we have so many more people today that come back and never leave the battle. Excuse me. And our casualty count for people that are dying of wounds they already received but you can't see is increasing by 22 every day. And that's the average, and Colorado and Texas don't report.
Right.
So it's actually higher than that.
Yes.
And those folks are just as much responsible for the freedoms that you receive, and even though they actually made it home and then just weren't able to stay.
You know, I think when I go to Washington, D.C. and I go to the Vietnam Memorial, the wall, all of that, it almost overtakes my ability to talk, which is amazing if you know me. But it is so overwhelming to me. And then when I think about the way they were treated when they came home, and so many of them didn't come home. I mean, we had so many young men that did not come home from Vietnam. And again, I just think it's so sad that we're not really, even though we've tried to make amends with them, we've tried to say, you know, thank you for your service, and we're sorry that we spat on you and called you horrible names. It would be so nice to see local groups get together and do things for Memorial Day that really encompass all of them, because it's not just World War II. There was Korea and Vietnam, and then Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and now Afghanistan, and all the stuff that's going on. But do you know of anything locally that people can get involved in if they want to give back and do something
I would
for
say
Memorial
the
Day?
biggest, and unfortunately it's not for another month, but so there's plenty of time if someone wants to get involved. The biggest local event that it both addresses those that have fallen and those who are still around and teetering on the edge. There's an Ironheart rally over at Groves Harley Davidson. I believe it's June 25th.
Okay.
And that is to benefit veterans' mental health through Project 22 and 22 Needs a Face. That is, excuse me, it's run, managed, administered by veterans. Nobody makes any money out of it except for the organizations, which it all goes through their charitable causes. The administrative fees are, I think, zero last I checked. Everybody donated their time and effort and energy. That is probably and being a veteran and having friends that have died both at their own hands and others, that is the only charity that I actually get involved in. And I mean, Disabled Veterans America, Wounded Warriors, the Fisher House is very well funded. They're also a great organization. But a lot of the other ones have had programs, and I'm singling out the Fisher House because they really do provide an excellent service. But they are, again, very well funded, very well established. The Project 22 and 22 Needs a Face is the most current thing that you can help do to keep from having to put another flag up sooner rather than later. And that's.
So if people want to get involved and donate, meaning businesses, sponsorship, whatever it is, are they able to just go to Groves Harley Davidson, or how do they?
You can go to Groves Harley Davidson. Their website has a link to the rally.
Great.
And forgive me, I can't spell it out because it's actually a Norse name. I didn't pick it.
It's okay.
But
we could clap it out.
But it's the Ironheart Rally, and I believe it's listed underneath their events page. And there is, if you have a business and you want to provide a sponsorship, sponsorships are very reasonable.
Great.
They start off very low and they go very high. This is the second year. Last year we did it in October as opposed to June, and even during the hurricane that came through, we still had a fantastic turnout. And it was a really great deal. So.
Well, Ian, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of our veterans that are watching today, and for those that are not able to watch today. But we want to thank you for tuning in with us, letting us come into your home today, and we will see you next time on Uncovering the Valley with Tammi Collins. Have a great day.